Viewers, welcome to the Personal Injury Law Show. My name is Tony Carbone, a lawyer with over 25 years experience doing compensation. Next to me I've got John Carances, accredited law specialist. How are you, Johnny?
Good evening, Tony. Good evening, viewers.
And I've got Don Mathia, who's an expert in transport accident cases. How are you, Don?
Good evening, Tony. Very good, thank you. Good
And
evening,
welcome
John.
aboard.
Good evening, viewers.
Tony, we've got tonight we're going to talk about transport accidents and transport accident law. However, prior to that, Tony, what's in the news?
Well, John, just on that issue of transport accidents and transport accident law, we've got stories about transport accidents. We've got a father that's killed by his partner in a driveway. That's an interesting story. We've got another story of a drug driver who tore up the highway and killed a couple of people, and he was heroin fueled. We've got the story of the lady who fell out of a city high-rise car park down the laneway, crashing her car.
That's just incredible how she survived that, Tony.
Oh, it's just amazing,
Yeah.
just amazing. Then we've got the story of the policeman that went to the aid of the four-wheel drive that tipped over and was leaking petrol, and he's gone there and saved this fellow's life because there was a fear that the car was going to explode. So the whole issue tonight is about transport accidents.
And Tony, there was just not long ago, I think last weekend, where a lady in North Baldwin was taking goods out of the back of her car and the car reversed.
And the children or someone released the handbrake.
Well, yeah, it reversed down the driveway and she was trapped and died, unfortunately, Tony.
Well, Don, just on this issue here, because we're going to be talking about pain and suffering damages in the transport accident jurisdiction, all these people that I've just mentioned, have they got claims?
Yes, they do, Tony. They have an entitlement to claim compensation from the Transport Accident Commission. They're entitled to receive no-fault benefits, which includes payments of medical expenses, wages for a limited period and a limited rate as well, and also lump sum if they've sustained a permanent impairment. In addition, they have a right to claim for compensation, common law right for damages, and that would be if they've sustained serious injury and can prove fault.
Don and John, just on that issue, a lot of the people that are going to be left behind are dependents. They're probably spouses and children.
Yes.
John, the rights, dependency.
Well, dependents are entitled to lump sum entitlements and to indexed pensions for life, aren't they, Don?
That's right. That's right. Dependents will be entitled to receive, like I said, the ongoing wages if they're a dependent of the deceased person, for a period of time, and also a lump sum that's assessed.
Well, they'd have to make an election, don't they? They have to make an election to either get the pension or alternatively sue for common law damages in circumstances where a third person's at fault.
That's correct. They can make a dependency claim under the Wrongs Act outside of the Transport Accident Act. Essentially, that means they just claim for financial loss arising from the death of the person and also loss of a service, but they can't receive both. So they make that election. If it's better to receive those benefits under Transport Accident Act, or better off to go under.
And assuming you've got family members that aren't dependents, they've got rights as well, haven't they? They've got rights to nervous shock and.
That's correct. For the purposes of compensation, an injury is not only physical; it also includes a mental injury. So it has to be a psychological injury arising from not even being involved in an accident, being a witness to an accident, or being a family member to someone who's injured.
Who subsequently finds out that their family members passed away, being deceased, they're entitled to claim, put in a claim for common law damages, but they have to lodge an initial claim form, don't they, John?
That must be done within the prescribed time limits. Otherwise, Don?
There's no rights at all, and the limit is 3 years. And if there's no claim after 3 years, there's absolutely no entitlement.
Well, you've got to lodge it within 12 months, but they've got a discretion to exercise. They can exercise the discretion within a further period of 2
So
years.
viewers,
That's right.
really, you need to lodge a claim as soon as you can. Otherwise, well, you need to protect your entitlements.
All right, now, just on this subject, we're talking about pain and suffering damages under the Transport Accident Act. As at 2008, the maximum you could get for pain and suffering was $422,900. That's all it is, John. Doesn't matter what your injury was. You could be a quadriplegic, paraplegic, tetraplegic, but that's all you're entitled to.
And that's for pain and suffering.
That's for pain and suffering.
But it's been increased, Tony, to $458,000.
Around that amount, I think. Is
That's
that correct?
right.
Don?
It goes up every year,
Incrementally.
incrementally every year. 1st of July, every year it goes up by
It's
a certain
indexed.
percentage.
Yes.
Yeah. But the thing is, The reason for these thresholds is why, John? Why have they got thresholds and also limits on what you can claim?
Well, there's a threshold which is around the $49,000,
It's 45 at the moment.
$45,000 mark. Now, if you do not reach that threshold in a pain and suffering claim, you're entitled to zero. Correct?
But why have they got these limits to? Why have they capped damages?
And they've capped damages at $458,000. Well, the Transport Accident Commission, and similarly with the Victorian Work Cover Authority, keep going on about scheme viability. I've got my own views about that in the
What's
sense
it mean,
that
Don? Scheme viability.
Scheme viability, all it means is that essentially saving money and reducing the costs associated with these compensation claims
at the expense of the injured person.
That's right. When they changed the law back in 1st of January 1987 was when they introduced TAC. The object of the law is to actually reduce the cost to the Victorian community of compensation for transport accidents. So it is to make it
Scheme viable.
Scheme viable.
However, that is at the expense of the injured person. And also, Tony, these government instrumentalities, the Transport Accident Commission, the Victorian Work Cover Authority, they're making a stack of money, aren't they, Tony?
They generally do make a lot of money. I think
Their
last year they might have had
investments-
issues because of the superannuation. Sorry, they've made investments with super funds.
That's right.
And they've lost a bit of money last year. But generally, the share market does okay for them.
So they've capped your entitlement to pain and suffering and actually economic loss, but pain and suffering is capped. I guess the question is, Tony, is this fair?
Well, I'm going to get to that, but first I want to go to the case of Pevridge and Dorso. Can you give us the facts of that, please, Don?
Yeah, the plaintiff in this matter, Mr. Petherbridge, he was involved in a transport accident. He was riding a motorcycle through an area called the Black Spur up in Maroondah Highway down the eastern
Beautiful
suburb
part of the
ways.
world.
It is, Tony. And he was riding a motorcycle with a pack of motorcyclists on the day, and he was about 12th or 13th in the line going through what they describe like a snaky sort of part of that area.
A winding road,
Winding road. Approaches a left-hand turning bend curve.
And he's an experienced rider.
He's a very experienced driver, as came out in the trial, and he hits an oncoming vehicle's trailer. So it was an oncoming vehicle driven by the defendant with a horse float trailer.
So he hit the horse float.
He hit the horse float, not the car, the horse float.
Before we get into too much detail, we've got to go to a sponsors break. So please, viewers, don't go away. Stay tuned. We'll be back very shortly with the facts of this case.